Namaste. Hi, welcome to the Shaman The Mermaid. This is the report for the Libra Full Moon, which is March 28th, and 2 weeks later we'll have the Aries new moon, dark moon, on Sunday, April 11th. And this whole report we're focusing in on themes of death and rebirth and resurrection, and also the masculine energy, but that doesn't mean the feminine isn't playing an important part here. When we kick off our Libra Full Moon on March 28th, the Sun is in the sign of Aries along with Chiron and Venus, and also Eris, who is Mars' sister or Aries' sister. And they're all opposite of the moon. So these four players are here, and here's the moon being illuminated. And so this is a fairly intense moon, and it's some cycles that are playing out. And we also have Mars on that same day, basically conjunct the North Node, which has a lot to do with the karmic axis of fate. So with that, we have a theme to kind of talk about the masculine.
That's a lot of masculine energy with Mars and Aries all over the place there in that first little download he just said. So the theme is give rise to a new masculine. We're at this resurrection time with Easter coming up halfway through the report, and we're at spring equinox when everything is bursting forth. It's time for new beginnings. And so we thought perhaps we could encourage that concept of a new masculine energy that we could all step into, men and women. The masculine energy doesn't have to do with gender. It has to do with kind of a frequency, if you will. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So this whole weekend, because of all that charged energy around Venus and Mars, there's a lot of potential for the initiate is the Aries energy, somebody who takes charge, the warrior, the fighter. And sometimes that can turn into aggression as opposed to some of the more positive ways that that initiate can use their energy, like growth and motivation and inspiration, assertion of things. So be aware that there's a lot of potential for aggressive behavior, and sometimes that aggressive behavior can turn into conflict. Oftentimes, actually, aggressive behavior turns into conflict, and whether it's a verbal fight or a physical fight, damage can be done when there is conflict at hand. So just a heads up that this weekend can have a little bit of that energy in it. So why does it have this energy in it? Well, the circle of the astrology wheel is broken into degrees, and there's a pileup on the 8th degree in Aries, and that's Venus, Chiron, and Sun all together at that same point. That's a lot of energy in general in the sign of Aries, which is already combustible, already a fire sign, already wants to get going and fighting, as I said. And then Chiron is the wounded healer, and we'll explain a little bit. Michael will tell you the story of Chiron in just a moment. And then the Sun, which is very masculine energy, it's that outward expression, it's piled up on there. And then Venus is holding her position in the feminine energy, but she's on her cycle, which takes her down into the underworld, and Michael will explain that too. So there's a whole lot of intensity around the Sun right now in that fiery sign that brings about some of that. So while we're in it though, while the Sun and the Moon are in opposition to each other, and there's this illumination, this bright light shining down, let's take a look at how we could give rise to the new masculine. What are some of the things of masculine energy that have not been supportive, and that we could switch it out and change that energy into a more productive use of the masculine energy? And, you know, when I speak of this misuse of the masculine, I'm referring to the 2,000 years of patriarchy that we've been under the influence of. And patriarchy, in opposition, matriarchy, these two words alone are not bad words, but The connotation that patriarchy has brought to itself is that it's an oppressive, white-dominated male energy that keeps anything below it pressed down and under control and not allowing for individual freedoms and expressions. And so that's a misuse of the masculine energy. And that is why we're saying let's give rise or resurrection or rebirth to a new way of using our masculine energy. There's a lot of positive attributes to masculine energy, like being a leader, like being assertive, like energy and confidence and self-discipline and being able to listen to criticism and use that constructive criticism to help you in right way to better your path instead of getting defensive and closed off when you get criticized for something. So there's a lot of positive ways that we can bring rise to the new masculine. We just need to educate ourselves and learn how to recognize when the masculine is being out of control, and so that we can use our own masculine energy to put a stop to the old ways of using or misusing rather the masculine energy. So let's hear the story of Chiron.
Chiron, as a planet, it's a dwarf planet. It was discovered in 1977, and at least in Western astrology, which is what we practice, we believe that we'll continue discovering more planets, more things as our consciousness expands, as within, so without. And so the more that we delve into our inner worlds, the more the outer world expands, or the more we see there. And so Chiron being discovered then was a reflection of what we needed to understand as a collective at that time. And Chiron, the dwarf planet, was named after Chiron, the Greek mythological, I don't know if hero would be the right word, but maybe that's a proper term for him. He does the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell would describe. The Chiron's story is that he is the son of Saturn, and his mother is a water nymph. Saturn represents time and space and physicality and karma, and usually in mythology, at least in our interpretation, when something has to do with water and the feminine, it's spirit, it's soul. And so Chiron, just like you as a human being, you're both physical and you're both spiritual, or you're both going to drop and die and be birthed, the body, and you'll also have your eternal soul, or your soul that continues with source, however you would describe that. Well, when Chiron's born, he is half horse, half man, called a centaur, and the moment he comes out, his mother and father both reject him. They think he's abominable, and they don't want to raise him, they don't want to be associated with him. And so it's also a reference to the human being. The moment you're born, you come into the trials and tribulations of life, and you feel a sense of rejection from the world of spirit. Chiron is adopted by the sun, Apollo, and in that adoption, the sun teaches him everything about the sacred arts, from geometry to math to whatever it may be, architecture to singing to notes to music to the circle of spheres. And Chiron himself becomes a master in all of these things. And he takes on many students. Anybody who's done Greek mythology, he was Hercules' teacher, he was Perseus' teacher. He taught all of the people in the great epics of the Greeks. And to shorten the story, he was at a wedding, Chiron, with his students, and one of his students tripped and fell when a little battle came out and shot his own teacher in the ankle with a poison arrow. Since Chiron was born of a god, he is both mortal and immortal, and so he can feel pain, he can be wounded, but he can't die. And so he went around being eternally wounded by the poison in his blood, and that represents us having traumas in our life, physical traumas, mental traumas, sexual traumas, whatever they be, and we carry them around. And Chiron searches for healing of the wound any way he can. He goes to homeopathy, he goes to chakras, he goes to meditation, all the things that we use in the yogic tradition and Mother Earth traditions, and he gives up. He says, I can't heal myself. I surrender, I want to die. And in that, he goes to Zeus or Mount Olympus, and he says, I'll do anything I can to die. And Zeus says to him, the only way you can die is if you take the place of another person who's immortal who can't die. And that would be the story of Prometheus. He was chained to a rock for eternity for stealing fire, and he says, I'll take his place. And in that, Chiron's chained to the rock for 3 days, and then he slips into the underworld. He has a journey there, and then he's resurrected and returned out to the sky, and thrown up into the stars, or lifted up into the stars as a guidance for all people who go through this hero's journey.
So he's representing carrying those wounds, and also, though, he's an effort to heal them. So Chiron with the sun, which is the outward expression of self, they're together right now in the full moon sky. And it's saying, let's really take a good look at healing some of our own wounds. And sometimes when we say, let's heal the patriarchy, it seems like an external force. Like we're going to go downtown to the government offices and go in and offer some help to how to better rule our society. And maybe that's a part of it, offering some suggestions for the good of the whole. But really, what we're talking about when we say give rise to a new masculine is if everybody goes internal into their own abode of being and fix and heal their own masculine energy. And we all, everybody has masculine energy. It's not just because you're a man that you have masculine energy and a woman only has feminine energy. It has nothing to do with gender. As I mentioned earlier, it's more of a frequency or a vibration, an energy that we carry. And we have equal amounts that snake up through us. Ida and Pingala are what we call them in the yogic tradition. These are channels of energy that pierce through each of the chakras through Sushumna Nadi, our main energy field, and they pierce out at third eye center. They come back together. They're together and whole at the base of our spine. They split apart as the masculine and the feminine, and then they come back together at third eye center. And we realize who we are through that third eye. So the journey of our two independent snakes coming up through our chakras is what we're needing to heal right now. We're needing to heal that masculine snake, Pingala, that has been forceful and domineering and using its power in wrong way. And we need to train it and teach it and let it master its use of its power in right way. The masculine energy is always powerful. It's the nature of it. It's that initiator again. It's the warrior, the take charge, the go forth and conquer. But the conquering doesn't have to be of others. It can be conquering, using our masculine energy to conquer our misuse of the earth. Let's conquer conquer a plan to bring health and wellness to Mother Earth. That would be a great use of masculine energy. So when I say go inward, take that honest look with Sun and Chiron right next together. Go inward and see where your wounds are. See where you have that masculine wound, and most of us do. It's rare the person that is completely healed on either side, masculine or feminine. So it's not out of the ordinary for us to want to go in and take a look at ourselves. Difficult, yes, but everybody's going to be in this need to heal something internally. And we'll give a little list here of some of the areas that are wounded in the masculine that we borrowed from Kaipacha, our astrology, one of our astrology teachers, who did a really great job of compiling a list of wounded masculine energy. And I want to just read off a couple of those right now. Or there's a whole list, and we'll put it up here as well so you can see. But the wounded masculine looks like identifying yourself on the outside, looking for external validation for your identity as opposed to looking inward for your identity. You have no purpose. You're distracted easily as wounded masculine. You're disciplined from the outside. You're looking for outside sources to discipline you rather than turning to your own willpower and internal strength to discipline you internally. Insecurity, which then manifests oftentimes as being controlling. When we don't have enough security ourselves, we boost up and project onto others by being domineering instead. Listless, lazy is wounded masculine. Following the conventions, following the sheep, being a sheeple is wounded masculine. Fears change and the unknown. passive acceptance of things without really trying to, fight against something that doesn't feel right. We just blindly accept it or passively accept it. Being a follower, again, that's like the sheeple. Untrustworthy, unreliable is wounded masculine. When we turn to being deceptive to use as a strength as opposed to being honest, that makes us also a wounded masculine. Spaced out, soft, dull, and defined by others, letting other people determine what you are and who you are. Weak and flimsy, blows with the wind, comme ci, comme ça. Powerless, when you give all your power away, just, I don't care, and just give it all away. Fearful, cowardly, pushed by external factors, when you let yourself be bulldozed over, when you let people push you aside. Shut down, closed heart. I think that's a big one for our collective society, is just shutting down. I mean, we're seeing so many people, particularly after this whole pandemic experience, and not that it's over, we're still in it, but we've seen a lot of people in isolation shut down and close up even more than they already were. It's been hard on so many in that way. Run and hide, escape from life, wounded masculine. Selfish, miserly, cruel to others. Indecisive is another. Dishonest, secretive, runs from criticism, very defensive. Kind of mentioned that earlier. A profane sex, turning to pornography for your sexual energy, or misusing your sexual energy in wrong way. Lots of masturbation is part of misuse of the masculine. Gives the minimum necessary. You just do barely enough to get by, not exerting beyond, not extending yourself. And lost in media or fantasy, just scroll, scroll, scroll. That's another sign of the wounded masculine. So as you can see, that covers a lot of territory, and oftentimes we might think, how is that the wounded masculine? But it really has to do with that use of our power, or misuse of our power, or non-use of our power. So there's a big need for the theme, which is give rise to a new masculine. And in a moment, I'll read off some of the healthy ways of what the masculine energy could look like in the new way going forward at this new springtime. So that covers Chiron and the sun together. What does Venus and the sun together look like?
It's a similar theme, but it brings in a little more of the feminine. Venus has been what we call on her underworld journey. On February 18th, she slipped down from the eastern horizon, and she is going to be there for 74 days. She'll resurrect on May 3rd, and she's now right at the midpoint. When she conjuncts the sun, she's halfway through her underworld journey, and this harkens to, and Katrina will talk about it more, the tale of Persephone and Demeter and going into the land of Hades. But basically it's the feminine energy taking a trip through the underworld, which is vibrating to the frequency of Aries right now. This is a very important point. This is a Venus star point, and there's 5 of them over the course of 8 years, and it tracks a flower in the sky. You can look it up. NASA has documented this, and so have many other astrologers. And each time Venus makes a star point or conjuncts the sun and changes directions from the morning star to the evening star, it's setting the tone for the next year and a half, year and 7 months. And it's a seed energy. It's also a stripping down. There's usually a loss of something as Venus is in the underworld. And so it goes back to the Chiron, Aries themes. There's a stripping down of the masculine. Something needs to die. Something needs to be released. Something needs to be transformed. And just like Venus, then in May when she resurrects, there's a return, a rebirth, and a renewal. And this would probably lead into the healthy expression of the masculine.
You know, you mentioned The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, and this is so what we as a people need to do. That's the classic journey for anybody to go from birth to death to rebirth again. And in that journey is the underworld for all of us. It's not just in fairy tales and mythology that characters have to go through some trials and tribulations in order to find themselves, to go through the dark night of the soul, as we say, and really, shed and let go and strip away the things that are no longer serving. And in this case, that patriarchy, the old way of how we've been dominating humanity with this top down, rich, white, male energy that's been kind of at the top of the pyramid, governing everything around and beneath it, that has to change. And this is where we are embarking, and we're going into the dark night of that soul. And it's hard. It's so ingrained in ways we don't even realize that it's in our habitual day-to-day existence. That it's just, we blindly accept. Remember, the wounded masculine is blindly accepting things the way it's been, complacently following along. And in order for that to break down and change, we have to start using the masculine energy in right way, which is being our own individual initiator of our own thinking and going with our own sense of what is internally right and wrong in our hearts. I hate to use the words right and wrong because that's so subjective, but you have a moral compass inside you that guides you. And if you've given it to somebody else to drive the bus, if you're letting somebody else tell you what your moral compass is saying and you're not reading it or following it yourself, you've given your power over. And that's that blindly accepting. So it's good. This is a time for us to a good time for us to come in and recalibrate, to recheck and see where we're at with our own moral compass. What is right way? What is good path? What is helping everybody have expression, having freedom, having food, having access to all the beauty of this life instead of this top down that it's been in this patriarchal paradigm that is crumbling. It is crumbling right before our very eyes. And so give rise to a new masculine, back to the theme. Okay, so Venus, Chiron, and Sun all together at 8 degrees in the sign of Aries, powering at us that they want us to change the masculine focus and have a rebirth of the new energy. At the same time, we have Mars in Gemini. Remember, Mars is that same masculine energy as Aries. So this planet now, not the sign, the planet is right up next to the North Node. The North Node represents where the soul wants to go forward with. So it's perfect that the give rise to a new masculine is the theme for Mars right next to where the soul wants to go forward. What do you have to say about the Mars Gemini North Node conjunction?
The Gemini North Node energy, we talked about this when we did our 2021 report. We spent a fair amount talking about the North Node. And Gemini energy is being adaptable, being curious, being open, using the mind to explore things, not to close things down. And a big piece that we came through with that report was that North Node in Gemini has a lot to do with being open, that people have different perspectives on life, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to conform to their perspective or necessarily reject their perspective. A strong masculine is you can stand strong in your perspective of life. You can stand up in your own power, assert your own authorship of your life, and you don't have to tear down, reject, or be overpowered by somebody else's perspective. It's okay. And it's okay to have disagreement about that. So the North Node is being okay that there are differences in people's opinions, people's cultures, people's backgrounds, people's sexualities, people's perception of what's going on in the world of society. And so Mars there is saying this needs to happen with the masculine. You need to both stand up and empower yourself and empower others as well. That would be a proper and healthy use of North Node in Gemini.
So that's all on the full moon on March 28th, Sunday. And then the very next day, Sun and Chiron will still be conjunct, but there's another conjunction, and that's Mercury conjunct Neptune in the sign of Pisces. And this is the expression of your imagination, the expression or communication around your spirituality is the way I see these two coming together. What do you see with Mercury and Neptune conjunct?
I agree with that, it's expression of imagination, of initiating things from the world of spirit, dreaming. Mercury also has connection to the underworld, and so does Neptune to some level. So I think it's in a way kind of really pushing home this theme that there needs to be some healing from the soul realm, the masculine, some looking, or another way to put it is shadow work. You could think Mercury and Neptune together is doing the shadow work, meaning addressing your shadow, not ignoring it, not suppressing it, not getting away from it with addictive behaviors.
It's that reminds me of a quote that we got from Kaipacha, who was quoting David Data, the author of The Way of the Superior Man, and it says, if necessary, a man should live with a hurting heart rather than a closed one. And that sticks with me. Like, sometimes when we want to go through life, we'd rather put on the mask and pretend everything's okay and ignore the issues or the shadow or the wounds and go la 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 la, everything's okay, I'm fine, great, I'm doing great, great. And then that wound is still festering inside there. And I feel the shift of that, what we should be stepping into, is be willing to go through your experience of life with the wound right there, maybe gaping and open and hurting a little bit, but open-hearted, even with the pain, and experiencing what's happening. Because with that, carrying the wound right there and letting it be exposed instead of hiding it, it allows for others to help heal it, for others to come in and bring you some medicine. Not that we want to look to the outside always for our source of comfort, but oftentimes we can see, when others see that we have a pain, they're gentle with us, they're compassionate towards us. They can offer suggestions of what we can do with that from their own experience. And so not hiding it and repressing it. And then also that allows our heart to be open. And when our heart is open, we're so much more ourselves. We're so much who we are and not blindly following the collective. Closed heart, pretending everything's okay and closing our heart to protect the wound, we're not us. We're not living our life. We need our heart in order for us to be fully capacitated, living from our heart to be fully capacitated. We need our mind and heart working together. And so much of what I've been seeing in my short time on the planet is that we are mind-centered. We follow our mind. We listen to our intelligence, and we don't listen to this heart piece so much. And this has been closed down for too long. And part of the rise of a new masculine is letting our powerful self come from our heart place, including if that means with an exposed wound right there in it. And who doesn't have a broken heart at some point in their life? We've all had pain. We've all had suffering. It's part of the experience of being human, as we have these tender hearts. So putting it under lock and key is not going to protect it, but you still can feel those wounds even when you have concrete wall up. So may as well just throw open the windows and the doors and let yourself experience the life fully and come from that place of an open heart. That's all Neptune conjunct Mercury on the 29th. Then Mercury's going to move into Aries on April 3rd. Now we have a whole party in Aries for a little bit longer. That'll be the whole thing until Venus moves out. Mercury in Aries, what does that look like to you?
This is quickness of mind. This is wanting to think, take action. Not that, again, the mind is wrong, but the first initiation could be to go with the intellect always. It's not that the intellect or cognition is bad, but it's out of balance when this is the main or only vehicle of seeing or perceiving the world. Now, Mercury in Aries can also be initiation and being assertive and taking forth and going out and doing the things that are inspiring in your life. Aries can have a lot to do with inspiration and raising and engaging with life, being present. And so this is maybe being present with life, being curious. Mercury is that curiosity. It's like, what's this? What's that? I'll study that. I'll engage with this. I'll observe that. I think that could be a positive use of it.
And Mercury moving into Aries, as I said, there's Venus there, Chiron there, the Sun there. And we've also, we haven't mentioned, but there's another one there, a dwarf planet named Eris, who's the sister to Mars. And she's kind of like a Kali energy, just, she is the death of things. She is one who can create a lot of chaos. And with Mercury moving into this full house in Aries, and these powerful, the wound, we could easily go into victim mode. When our wound gets activated, rubbed up against, ouch, that hurts. And then that can lead us right into martyr victim. So be aware that that is not a positive use of your masculine energies to go into victim or martyrdom, and to stay in your uplift. Even though that pain is there, nurture yourself. There's a use of your feminine energy to help nurture yourself, take care of yourself, but not letting it go into a negative spin of martyrdom and victimization. And then Easter Sunday, the 4th of April, is a half moon in Capricorn, and Capricorn represents that patriarchy again, but the half moon represents balance. So this is hopefully a day that we could begin to step into that new paradigm of new masculine energy. When we celebrate that he has risen, maybe we can look at the concept of what Jesus really was like and what his energy was. To me, from what I understand in my readings and teachings of Jesus, he represents the strong masculine. He represents everything in healthy, right way masculine energy. So if we're going to celebrate that he is risen, coming back to birth, let's do a big resurrection day of the healthy masculine, and some things that we could celebrate about healthy masculine. I said I'd read off Kaipacha's list of healthy masculine traits. This would be a good time on Jesus' resurrection day. That you identify from within, that you are you and you appreciate and celebrate you. You have a sense of purpose. You're purposeful in your existence. You have self-discipline. You use your own willpower and strength to discipline. You're confident. You're energetic. Takes initiative and innovation. You're a kickstarter for things. You do things. You're the one who goes and gets it and not just waits for it to be done. Faces and pushes the edge and the limits. That's hard for people. We don't like to go up to the edge and look over. Go right up to the edge. That's a big, healthy masculine trait. Assertive, a leader, trustworthy, reliable, able to commit, focused, hard and sharp. I think sometimes we can, the opposite of that for the wounded masculine was soft and dull. And soft has its place, but in your masculine energy, you want to be hard and not dull. You want to be that sharp edge, really keen and clear in your thinking, focused. And then his list has self-defined, knowing who you are by definition. You determined it. It wasn't handed to you from your parents or your mate. You're your own person and you've defined yourself. Strong and solid, centered, powerful, inwardly motivated. You don't need external forces to get a push. You've got your own motivation. Open-hearted. There's that open-hearted again. That is a healthy masculine. And remain strong when facing challenges of life instead of cowarding or quitting or giving up. Guard and protect those in need. live in the eternal, decisive, loving, generous, kind. Are these words that you would think of when you think of healthy masculine? Loving, generous, and kind. These are absolutely the healthy masculine. Honest, straightforward, listens to criticism. This is that one I was talking about before, like not getting quick to be defensive, using criticism to help you grow. Practicing sacred sexuality. This is a big one. Our sexual practices as a collective are subversive, hidden. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about our feelings about sex. I'm embarrassed. Let it be an open conversation, starting with our children, with your partner, talking about what is on your mind, what you're knowing your body, respecting your body, turning off the damn porn channel, get off Pornhub. It's too accessible, too easy, and extremely detrimental to that healthy masculine. And find out your definition of sacred sexuality. What does that mean to you? Why have sacred sex? What is it, and how do you do it, and why would you want to? These are important concepts to wrap your brain around in this new shift of the rise of the new masculine. Give 100%. That's that go-getter. Not half-ass, not barely doing it, not letting somebody else press the button for you. Be your own initiator and be present. The negative of that was living in fantasy land and scrolling your media 24/7. Like, be present, be in the now, listen to people talking to you with both ears and both eyes. Have conversations, absorb the sunshine, take in a walk, be in nature, notice the birdies in the trees, enjoy the present moment. These are healthy masculine energies, and that's a good thing to look for, or maybe carve out a few of those to put on the Easter egg hunt when you're going hunting for those new eggs of birth, that those be inside, those qualities of loving kindness, generosity, open heartedness. What would Jesus do, as they used to say. I think that's a great motto right now. And then we move on to the 9th of February, Friday, where Mercury is now going to be conjunct Chiron. What's that one look like?
I would say this is just tapping on all the theme that we've had before. It's reinitiating that Chiron, Venus, Sun point, give rise to a new masculine. Mercury, as we said before, can represent doing the shadow work or going in and working and addressing that. And so I think this is just saying, remember, keep working with the wounded masculine and to heal it and to rise up to these new principles that Katrina listed. And that same day we have Mars also square Neptune, the last aspect of our report. Mars is still very close to the North Node, and so Neptune squaring both Mars and the nodes can create, it's called a karmic skip step. And so this is something that the collective has passed over and needs to readdress. And Neptune is spirituality, it's unconditional love, it is stepping in to being a spiritual human being. And Mars, where you're looking at it as what is challenging it, is being in the ego, it's being in the wounded masculine. And so this is the spirituality and the ego coming into a square with each other, and it's on the nodes of fate, meaning this is really important. It's not something we can skip again, or if we do, the karmic consequences get much more difficult.
Oh, that sounds tough. It's so hard to be a human and a spirit being at the same time, but this is the whole challenge for us, is to use that masculine energy to really step up into our power so that we can walk this earth walk as two-legged while being spiritual beings. And this will be put to the test through the course of this whole next year. There's a constant square between Aries and Pluto throughout 2021 that's asking our souls to really purify what is in wrong way. So why not just be proactive, which would be a very healthy masculine trait, and take initiative and start now, especially at Easter time. Or if moving on Easter Day is not working for you, the Aries new moon on Sunday, April 11th, where we'll leave you off and pick you up at the next report, could be a good time to set those new intentions around rise of a new masculine. All right, I think that wraps it up. We'll see you on the Aries new moon, and happy Easter, and we'll talk to you soon. Namaste.
Namaste.